When you're a writer, a filmmaker, or some other type of creative, inevitably there will be a time when you ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? You'll ask yourself this question when the reality of how difficult the life and career of a creative can be. You'll ask yourself this question when you're in the midst of trying to write a novel or a screenplay and you keep hitting walls and the story just doesn't work. You'll ask yourself this question when you have trouble finding a literary agent to shop around your great American novel to publish, or you can't find a distributor for your independent film that you just know is brilliant and that the world needs to see. So what is your why? What is your overarching purpose of why you continue to do what you do? To tell stories even if they don't reach a massive audience like you would like them to, or that you hope they would. An author friend of mine gave me a great perspective on this issue. He says his purpose for why he writes books is because he's motivated to become a best-selling author to take care of his wife and children. And also, he knows that he wants to be the best version of himself for his family, which means becoming a successful author. The sense of fulfillment that he'll draw from being successful at writing will help him be the best husband and father he can be. But what about those of us who are single? What is the motivation to be successful, to do what we do as a writer and a filmmaker, if we don't have a significant other to wake up to every morning and remind us of our mission in life, or a house full of kids to take care of and to set an example for? What is our purpose? A very successful filmmaker friend of mine who doesn't have kids says that his purpose for why he does what he does is that he wants to help people develop themselves. He wants to inspire people by telling them stories that will motivate them to become the best versions of themselves. And he has firsthand experience in self-development because he used to be a couch potato who would spend all his time playing video games and watching TV. Through the sheer force of self-determination, he got up off the couch and started working on himself and was able to build several multi-million-dollar businesses and launch a very successful movie production company. So in short, he wants to make the world a better place through his storytelling by inspiring people to be the best that they can be. Do you have some lofty, altruistic purpose like this to be successful as a writer, filmmaker, or any other type of creative? Now, I have to admit that I really don't have those kind of high-minded principles that motivate me to tell stories. The reason why I became a writer and a filmmaker is simply because I have stories inside me that I want to tell, and I've always had a vivid, overactive imagination. But recently I had an epiphany, and I realized that actually I do have an unselfish motive for telling stories. This eureka moment was triggered by a somewhat obscure thriller movie from the 1980s that I saw recently. Let me explain. So on Labor Day this year in September 2022, I was at home, bored and lonely, and I don't know if this is the case with you, but being a creative person with a really fertile imagination, it's hard for me to find stuff to watch because so much of it is formulaic and predictable, and my standards are really high because, as creatives, we know the mechanics of storytelling, so it's kind of hard to kind of reel us in. But I stumbled across this movie, FX, a thriller from the 1980s that is somewhat, I think, not as known as other movies from the 1980s. And this is about a Hollywood special effects artist who gets drawn into this plot to help a mafia boss go undercover because he's in the witness protection program. So this movie just really captured my imagination, I think because it's set in the movie-making film world. And all my loneliness and boredom went out the window. And I had this aha moment when I realized, hey, maybe there's someone out there like me who's bored and lonely, and I can make stories, I can tell stories, I can make movies like this movie FX that will provide escapist entertainment to help them literally escape the doldrums of everyday life. So what is your why? What is your overarching purpose? I'd love to know. Leave it in the comments. Thank you for watching. My Patreon channel will go live on October 1st. That's when I will start posting content, exclusive content to the Patreon platform. Right now, The only thing that is on there is the trailer showing what my Patreon page will look like sort of previewing some of the content. And I've signed up for Patreon Lite, which allows people who follow me on Patreon to choose whatever amount they want to give to me on a monthly basis, whether it's $1 or $100. I'll appreciate any kind of contribution because everything will help me continue to make movies, write books, do plays, and produce work that champions African Americans, Latinx people, uplifts women, just promotes diversity and inclusion in every form. So here's a look at my Patreon channel and some of the content that will go live on October 1st, 2022. Here's what happened, y'all, when I tried to check something off my bucket list and tried to learn to do a backflip. The results were not pretty. You all, there was a song by LaToya Jackson called Does It Really Matter Now? I think it was produced by Full Force that came out when I was in high school, and I always wanted to direct a music video to this song. I don't know why, and yes, I said LaToya Jackson. You all, I spent a week collecting grievances, literally writing down grievances on my phone. Everything from people driving like maniacs in traffic and making me feel unsafe, to a cashier not saying a word to me when I said good morning and thank you to her, and instead she kept her attention focused on her phone as she was checking me out. This week of collecting grievances, I collected over 500. Everything from grievances that were external, people annoying me, to being annoyed with myself at like forgetting to do some task. And here's what I learned. Recently I was scrolling. God.